welcome to my review of the Revision Caiman helmet. It's now sold under the Galvion brand, so there's going to be a couple of differences from what you see in front of you in terms of branding, but by and large it's still the same helmet made by the same people in the same factory, just under the new name. So I'm doing this video because, quite frankly, there's no good information out there about this helmet. When I was looking to buy a new helmet to replace my last solution, I couldn't find anything. And there was some marketing material, I think a couple of pamphlets, a promotional flyer or two, and then a Revision marketing video, which is a bunch of military dudes in a kit room getting ready to do military stuff. But you don't actually talk about the helmet, it's just some glamour shots and war porn, right? And so it didn't give me any real idea of why I should buy this helmet. And I think that's a shame, because I think this helmet really brings a lot to the table in terms of modularity, usability, customization that has been lacking from many of the more mainstream high-cut ballistic helmets, including the OpsCore fast helmets. And I think Revision, now Galvion, has said, hey, we pulled all, the best and brightest minds together and yada this, yada that, focus group this, whatever. It works. I mean, the end result here is, I think, an eminently wearable helmet that really does meet the hype that they set forth. Although there are some, I would say, areas where what was done is probably not quite what should have been done, especially in regards to the suspension system. And we'll talk about that when I get to that part of the review. But in the meantime, here's the helmet. So this helmet, as some of you may already know, competed up against the OpsCore solution for the SOCOM FTHS, or Family of Tactical Headborne Systems, which was really a vehicle, in my opinion, for SOCOM to move away from a variety of different helmet shells and get down to one, maybe two or three that were more sustainable and more supportable across the force. I think at the time they had multiple OpsCores, the high cuts, the Maritimes, the whatever the Navy was using at the time, I don't remember, it doesn't matter. And then there were a couple legacy airframes floating around. I think some Team Wendy's had been purchased. But either way, you had this amalgamation of helmets, and I think SOCOM as a whole said, you know what, we need to get away from this, and we want one solution that is more lightweight, more capable than what we have, while still retaining capability across the board. So that's why, if you look at this helmet, you see that it still retains basically the prototypical arc rail attachment method, right? Where you have the channel that attachments can slide into, secure down with a set screw or another form of retention, so that you have compatibility with basically everything that SOCOM had already bought, whether it was O2 masks or ballistic mandibles, or in this case, like I've got mounted on my helmet, lighting solutions, arc rail adapters for hearing protection, the amps, the rack headset, whatever. That way they wouldn't have to toss the baby out with the bathwater and start over. And it works. Now, mostly. And I'll talk about that on this helmet specifically here in a minute. So this helmet is it's abbreviated 3A or modified 3A rating. It also meets the Army's ACH, or Army Combat Helmet Standards, for frag and ballistics, as well as obviously the SOCOM FTHS. What all that means, I couldn't tell you. I'm not a ballistics expert, but I will say it's rated to stop 3A, or abbreviated 3A, so it should stop 9mm, 44 mag, whatever, and it's something I would certainly place my trust in for ballistic saves. My understanding is that there are one or two of these that have had ballistic saves with other organizations. Speaking of other organizations, there are a few different groups running these. I think the Coasties actually have them. The Polish Grom seem to be running these. When I was involved in the stuff at HKIA, there were some foreign soft running around with them that we could see. And so, and I wasn't at HKIA, to be clear. It was just, I was helping from a distance, but I mean, you could see the guys on the ground, yada yada. So, it seems to be a popular helmet with the market that has them, but unfortunately, and why I'm doing this video, again, there's no information out there. And Galvion now restricts the sale to military, law enforcement, and government customers. So unless you're able to get one on the secondary market, or like I did, get a new old stock, older branded helmet, they're really hard to get a hold of, which I think is a shame. Like I said, I really think that all that focus group hoopla, it actually kind of lives up to the hype, and I'm really happy with this helmet. So first and foremost, let's talk about these rail adapters here on the outside. These are, like I mentioned earlier, OpsCore compatible. They follow the ARC pattern, but they're skeletonized and lightweight compared to the original OpsCore Fast. I know somebody's going to ask, so no, the holes are not in the same spot. You cannot switch out the rails, which is unfortunate because if you had an OpsCore high cut, these would actually be a really cool replacement, but the geometry is just different. They're not compatible. As you can see, I've got the SNX Max mount on here. This is one of their newer production ones. I used to have one of the old generations. I actually really like the new one. I really like the new one a lot more than the old design. What I found is that, and it may be a case of tolerance stacking, but the Max mount itself, the dovetail attachment where it goes into the rail, was very tight on the rail. And I don't know if that's a case of the revision rail geometry being slightly off or maybe molded too tight. But the SNX Max did slide on directly onto my OpsCore rails, so not sure what to say about that other than it was tight, but it went in, did not seem to cause any damage to the mount or the rail. As we look at the helmet also, I want to point out you can see the shock cord here. That shock cord is advertised as being able to retain cabling. In this case, I also have my nods secured to it, which seems relatively stable. It's not my preferred solution, but I also really do not enjoy using these bungee clips that everyone seems to enjoy. I don't care for those, so I routed it through the shock cord. I'm going to turn the helmet around here real quick, and you'll be able to see, whoops, if I don't bonk everything to shit and back, you can see what that routing looks like here. I've got my GSGM mount, and that cable routed through the loop, and then I actually secured it to the 31 battery pack, wrapped it up in gaffer's tape to hide the shine, and then routed it through. I think one of the things I'm not thrilled about is, as you can see, there's a certain amount of unsecured material. On the traditional OpsCore Fast, high cut, or maritime helmet covers, you'd be able to route that through some foliage loops or tie-down loops. But that's really not an option on the Galvion or Revision helmet cover, so I don't have that. On the other hand, I'm not going in and out of helicopters anymore. I'm not worried about vehicle ops or snagging this. And if I was, I'd probably toss on some Velcro and just run some Velcro over the cable to the hook and loop on the bottom and call it a day. So take that for what it's worth. It's just something I do want to point out on the rails. When it comes to actually mounting in night vision devices, Galvion Revision went with the 3-hole Warcom pattern. This is the standard. It was called out in the FTHS requirements. It's a fairly old standard that has held up through time, and in this case I replaced the factory polymer Wilcox L4 shroud, the triangle plastic one with the aluminum, I think, insert, with the low profile L4G whatever the hell, and then direct mounted my GSGM on it. So dropped right in, easy fit. I do want to point out real quick that there are 3 holes in the liner system itself, which I'll get to in just a second, so that you don't even have to take the liner out, which is a huge improvement over my old OpsCore Legacy Lux liner. Not sure if they've changed it since then, but I know on my high cut, the Lux liner, I had to take it all out to swap out mounts. So that's actually really nice, and I appreciate that feature. Let's talk about the liner itself. This uses what Revision, now Galvion, brands the Apex liner. In this case, I have mine set up for over-the-head hearing protection, and then I do not use the dial adjust mechanism, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Configuration was really easy. The pads actually have, and you can see here behind the major foam padding, you've actually got thin laser cut shims which can go in. These were included with the helmet, and I basically shimmed everything. This is an extra large. I wear a large, well, I wear a 7 5/8 hat, and it ended up needing a bit of shimming. So it works out well. It's very comfortable even without the cam fit, or the dial adjust system rather. The dial adjust is here. I pulled it out. It's actually removable. You can see it looks very similar to the Ocdial solution from OpsCore. Again, it's like, hey, let's look at your homework, but don't quite copy it. What I'm going to point out here is that there is actually, well, that's really blurry, but we'll refocus. There we go. It's a smaller dial, right? So if you're used to the Ocdial and kind of digging that into the back of your neck, this does away with that. But the drawback is that smaller dial is actually really hard to manipulate with gloves because it sits under the brim of the helmet as you wear it. In fact, let's kind of hold this up here. So that Velcro there on the nape itself is where that Velcro connects to. So you can see as you do that, kind of just overlaying that there, it actually rides so that it's basically right in front of that shock cord holder, and that's very cumbersome to adjust with gloves on the fly. And then as you look around, I've pulled it off completely and replaced, I just used the standard H-nape. I didn't have to modify anything, which I'm really appreciative of. Actually, if you look in the helmet itself, there are, you can see them right there, there's 3 holes right there, just as an illustration, and then on the system right there, those pegs actually go into those holes, so you can snap this in if you want to use it or pull it out if you don't. And it's also user adjustable, so there's basically 2 positions on the front of the helmet on either side, and then on the back you can't really see it. Well, you won't be able to see it very well, but there are some vertical adjustment positions. Again, 2 positions, so you can move the dial adjust mechanism up or down a little bit in the back, and then narrow it or loosen it a little bit in the front. They also use their H-nape chin strap, which again looks really similar to an ops core. Here I've got the ops core fleece cover from the extender because I've got a beard and I don't like ripping things out. It's basically held in place with elastic, so I can pull it out when it gets really grody. But there's a but here. There's something I want to address that I think really kind of falls short on this suspension, which is the locks for the sliders. So you can see here they're wrapped up in gaffer's tape. That's because on these there's actually a plastic tab you can see right there, and then you can see there's some play there. It actually comes undone. I've had this come loose while I was shooting, while I was running around with a helmet with night vision on. I did not lose retention on the chin strap, nothing fell apart, but I just wasn't entirely comfortable with that. So when I got back home, the second or third time it happened, I wrapped them up in gaffer's tape, and I haven't had it happen since. So just something I did. It's worked out really well. Unfortunately, I had to do it on this helmet, and it's not a problem I've ever had with the Ops Core or the Team Wendy suspension systems. Take that for what you will. I think that is a drawback to the liner system. Oh, and real quick, while we're here, I did mention this with the Warcoms. If you take the pad off, you can see, there they are, 1, 2, 3, and you can access the screws through there. Again, all you have to do is remove the foam pad. It's really nice, it's really convenient. And if you've been paying attention, boy, this looks really similar to the vented Lux liner from OpsCore. Yep. Same basic solution, just a little bit different execution. And again, as I mentioned with the rails, the position of the bolts, the through bolts there, they do not line up, so I don't see there's any world where you'll be able to switch the systems out. You could probably put in the Team Wendy cam fit if you were so inclined, but to be honest, I have the cam fit and I kept this in, so take that for what it's worth. So there you have it. I hope this overview was quick, dirty, and decent. As you may have guessed, I like to run a relatively light helmet setup, and I do not believe in integrating earring protection or communication systems into the helmet, so I run those separately. In this case, I just have the night vision device. I've got my Unity Spark for range time IFF. I've got an SNS Max mount if I want to illuminate anything or do umbrella lighting inside, and then a 31 battery pack because it's got extra battery capacity, and then there's some IR strobes built on if I ever, for some unlikely reason, need to flash my position to someone far away. I have that capability. So all in all, really lightweight, easy to use setup, really happy with it. If you're on the fence about getting one of these and you have the opportunity to, I would absolutely take this over an OpsCore Fast SF. I think the weight is about the same, if not just a little bit heavier by an ounce or two from the literature I've read, but in my opinion, this is a significantly better helmet in terms of features, and while I'm not surprised it was not selected, I think it is kind of a shame that it's not widely available. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching.